Webinar has started.
No, hold on, not yet.
Webinar is being recorded. We got to start. It's on. This is on, folks. So welcome to the Carlos and Jason Sanchez Photo London Conversation webinar, where we will be talking about some of their new works, as well as their recent book, The Mystery of, which I, Adam Leith Gollner, had the joy of working on with them. So we're going to begin with a little bit of an introduction.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to tell you at home about the Sanchez brothers and I and this book. And then we are going to basically go from the very beginning of their art practice in Montreal all the way up until today, up until Photo London. So
it's going to be a 16-hour webinar. We're going to pause for an intermission 3 times.
I hope you are all well buckled in for this.
Yeah.
And so this is how I described the brothers in The Mystery of at the beginning of chapter 2. And I think it serves as a good bio for them. So you guys are going to have to sit here awkwardly while I read about you.
God.
Sorry. But it serves as a good general introduction. And this was at the moment that I was writing this text, which was a couple of years ago. So things have flashed forwarded since then. But at the moment that I was writing this book, and today, the Sanchez brothers are award-winning filmmakers, visual artists, screenwriters, and commercial directors. Whatever they do, in whatever medium it may be, it involves the telling of stories. And that's one of the things that we're going to be coming back to today is the importance of storytelling as a uniting force in all of their work. But their images may be moving, or they may be static. They may be written out, or they may be sculptural. They have been working on a follow-up to their first feature film. They were, at the time that this book was being worked on, they were showing pieces at the Musée des Beaux-Arts de Montréal, and they were participating in the Contact Photography Festival in Toronto, just as they are now participating in Photo London with Christopher Cutt's gallery. A holographic installation for the Musée d'Art Contemporain de Montréal's Leonard Cohen retrospective, A Crack in Everything, was traveling as part of the show. And that piece, which was entitled, I Think I Will Follow You Very Soon, from 2017, is a physical recreation of Leonard Cohen's Los Angeles home, in which a hologram of the singer sits outside the window of his study, contemplating his life and perhaps even his imminent death. He seems to be reminding us that the only thing we can do with the mystery of it all is make offerings to the unknown, which is what this book is, and perhaps what this Zoom conversation is. Anyways, I'm very happy to introduce you all to Carlos Sanchez, who is sitting beside me, and Jason Sanchez, who is sitting in the confines of his dungeon.
I wasn't invited to the gathering, so I'm here by myself.
There's not enough room for 3 people here.
True.
And we're best friends. So obviously.
FOMO.
And there's also the very real possibility of confusion that maybe people think that we're the Sanchez brothers.
I wish.
In which case, Jason, who would you be?
I'd be Adam.
Perfect.
I'd be Mr. Wordsmith, Wordslinger.
So okay.
So let Adam ask the first question.
Well, I mean, I think we should begin at the beginning. And so maybe that is the first question. Tell us how this whole journey of storytelling photographers, visual artists, filmmakers, how did it begin? How did it begin for you?
I think it began when I was in college. My dad had given me a camera and we had a darkroom at home. And I just take black and white photos, street photography, nothing really conceptual, just, finding things to shoot, finding moments to shoot. And then when I went to university, in the photography program, I got a little more interested in staging images. I was more interested in, creating stories than, actually finding them.
Mm.
So in the first year of color photography, I started shooting a more larger format film. And along with Jay as one of my models, we'd get other friends and we'd recreate kind of mobster scenes. So, full of oversized thrift shop suits and mafioso hats and violent and, deranged scenes. And that's pretty much where it started. We would just get a bunch of us together, get a case of beer, and go out and make images. And that was our first, jump into kind of staging things.
So
Yeah,
Jason,
that's
you
where
remember-
well, that's where like the more serious-ish stuff began. But I think there's a lot of like moments that predate that by a decade at least. Like I remember we would just our grandfather had a video camera, and I remember when we were very young, I don't know what motivated it, but we grabbed it and we made these like cut in camera, like fake commercials and things where we were parodying certain brands and scenes and things like that, and kind of putting these stories together with whatever props we could find in the house, in whatever clothes we could throw on to kind of fit the scene. These very silly little things with two kids that were probably under 12 years old, without even thinking that I don't even remember it, but when I watch it, I see that, like there was some thought behind it. Like there was some conscious effort of cutting two scenes together in camera to make some sort of story flow. And then when we got our own video camera at home, we would create like a little talk show thing with some friends. In our minds, it was always for fun, but it still came to be the roots of all these things that we're doing now, trying to do now professionally, like writing, editing things, directing things. So it was, the photo stuff was one thing that kind of got us in on a professional level, but there's always been from childhood this interest in putting things on camera and being part of creating stories and things like that. It's only when photo came into it that it became more of a serious endeavor.
It's very interesting. And as photo enters both of your lives, I mean, you were going to Concordia University in the photo department, is that right? Or the fine arts department?
No, photo. I was doing a major in photography. And I think it was my second year that I took a color course. And or second or third year. And yeah, it was just I had spent my previous photography life just capturing moments that were in front of me. And I don't know how it came up to stage things, but it did. But it wasn't even that serious, I think, at first. If you're getting together a bunch of friends, with oversized suits and ketchup blood, it's not that serious. But I don't know, somehow like something clicked in our heads as to a new way of photography for us, and a new way of maybe a more serious way of expression. And shortly thereafter, Jay decided to stop being a model.
My rider got too lengthy.
Yeah, and yeah, pulled himself back and came in back of the camera.
There's some good, some of these early kind of scenes that they're describing are included in the book. There's one here. Jason, are those your feet sticking up over the bed?
Those are my feet in our grandmother's old bedroom.
So the book has
God
some of
bless her.
this early work, but then there's this pivotal moment, which we're getting to, which is your first ever group exhibition where you show a photograph. Is that, am I understanding this correctly?
It was, I think, our first serious venture into exhibitions. It was with Concordia. It was a group exhibition in 2001. So that was our last year at school before we said goodbye to university. And we had one piece called Red Dress, which Adam will show you.
Yeah, maybe. So we describe this piece in the book. It's the opening of the book, and it's a piece that they showed at their very first exhibition. And I bought it, and I will, well, or at least I bought a copy of it, a print of it, and I'm going to show it to you where it's still hanging on the in the front of this apartment. So I'll walk you there in a moment, but. The first line of the book says, "The first artwork I ever bought was the first artwork ever sold by the Sanchez brothers." Is that factually correct?
It is.
That's actually been fact checked.
It's been fact checked. It's the
Lawyers have fact checked it. Yeah, it's good.
So I'm gonna take this other computer here and I'm going to walk viewers briefly down the hall. And I think that the photo is important, not just because it, is still a part of my life and your lives, but also because it's a kind of interesting jumping off point for talking about another theme that we've seen in your work throughout the rest of your lives, which is mystery. And also this idea of a single image being a part of a larger narrative. And so I'm going to do the walk now and
You have your audio on?
Go. There he goes.
there you go.
Don't get lost.
Follow him, follow him.
We're walking through the apartment here. Audio.
There we go.
How's this? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. So there it is in the front yard. I mean, sorry, in the front hall, not the front yard. And when I saw it the first time, I was like quite astonished by it because, as was everybody else who was at the exhibition, because it's kind of perplexing what's going on. You know, there are three figures in it, but there's no real kind of sense of perspective that we can make sense of. We know that they're apparently hovering on a swimming pool. So that mystery was what attracted me to this painting, and that's the reason I bought it.
Made a killing.
Yeah, exactly. And I will now read you a brief line about it, brief description of it from the book that will then lead into a conversation a little bit about
Life.
how your subsequent work. But just looking at the photo felt like a kind of search. What exactly was happening? Were they somehow floating on the water? Or were they in the water? Had a large piece of plexiglass been placed over the pool's surface? I initially assumed that the figures had been photoshopped in, but the woman in the red dress, who was my friend who had brought me to this exhibition, informed me that the shot was taken as is, without any special post-production effects. Not that digital manipulation would have made the tableau any less Dr. Caligari-esque. The eerie shadows of the men's legs hovering on the pool walls only added to the drama. Who were these characters? How did they know each other? What sordid underworld did they levitate out of?
Art school.
The same university as me. Well, here we are. So mystery is one of the things that we see in this work. And that's part of the reason we decided to title this book in a kind of Agatha Christie vein, The Mystery of. And let's turn this over to you now. What is it about mystery in your works, and what is it about mystery in photography specifically that has been kind of a guiding principle for you?
Sure.
I think it's a great medium to
Oh, maybe Jay's
employ
on mute.
such a thing.
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Or we
I think
we didn't hear anything.
no, you missed the best part of the whole talk. No, I think it's a perfect medium to be able to create mystery. I mean, you're essentially crystallizing one moment. You're freezing one moment in time. Nobody can say anything. The camera can't move. There's no music. You just have this one piece. And for us, I think what interests us is creating a dialogue, a kind of emotional connection with the viewers through these images. And I believe we use the images as like just a stepping into something. We allow you to step into this moment, into this world, into this scene that we're sharing, and then kind of letting you go into it. And part of what interests us is after the people are within it, where that particular image takes them personally. For us, when it comes down to exhibiting, most pieces, when it comes down to exhibiting them, it doesn't really matter where it came from us. It doesn't matter where the idea came from necessarily, or what the story is, for the most part. What's really interesting is how it then comes alive. With other work, sometimes by the time it's done, it feels kind of like the essence has been taken out of it in a way. Like I think working on the film, you work on it for so long, and then you let it out into the world when we did it, and you kind of feel disconnected from it. There's a weird sensation from that moment. It just kind of goes on. But with the photo, and when it's on the wall and people start getting into the story for themselves, because it's just them and the piece, it kind of creates this new life. And I think part of that's what we find interesting, and why maybe it sounds we're drawn to creating things that are mysterious, just because with mystery, you can't reveal everything. You got to leave certain clues unsolved, unfound, to allow for that search.
And I think it also opens it up to the viewers. We always have been interested in making images that will make people think. And it's always fun to hear what other people think about the images, because you can say, oh shit, I had never even thought about that, or oh, that's a good take on it. So I think we try and make images that are, I wouldn't say accessible, but are maybe in a way accessing stories in people's minds and let them get lost in it. And they're very wide open images. It's rare that it's an image you're like, okay, this is what's happening. We always try and layer things and make it not so upfront, so that people can make their own stories about it.
I feel like there are clues in the images, and the clues are these things that kind of like detonate in our own mind. You know what I mean? Like there's like something about it that, you talk about inviting us in, Jason, or bringing us into a world. There's something about the clues in there that bring us into a story, and yeah, I guess they do make you think. But I guess they're clearly stories. The stories are, or the photos are stories, and there's a whole kind of backstory behind that image, and whatever happened in that moment right before it, and whatever's going to happen after it, that you can't help being affected by.
Yeah,
right?
It's we always kind of give, well, we give one frame, and we try and compress as much story into that single frame so that you can think of what happened before it, and you can think of what's going to happen after it. And it's our job to make that frame as complex or as simple as needed, but always make it so that you can really think about it, and try and get to the core of what you think is going on.
Jason.
Yeah, oddly enough, I never think of the before or after. It doesn't work as I don't think of the image as a story that's continuing. It's very different. It's of that moment and what's transpiring in that specific moment. I think the idea is also to give enough so that the moment also speaks for itself. It's not about placing things that have an effect on time necessarily. Like, was this placed? Is this going to have an effect on what's going to happen afterwards, or is this going to have? Did this have an effect on what happened before?
But I think it makes the image more appealing if you can have these bookend things where you can reference. We'll bring up some of our new images later that will be showing in London, and we can talk about that, because I think we've tried to become more subtle in our storytelling and in our mystery than maybe from the images we did 5 or 10 years ago.
I mean, that's a natural kind of element of your evolution as
You get old.
as artists. You get old, but you're also, you're honing your voice. But that early one has this kind of spontaneity to it, and it's got a lot of energy, and it's a very interesting hinge or turning point from your earlier model citizen stuff to your more serious work. And one of the things that we see that comes shortly after that image is that you guys get a little bit more into building complex sets. So in a way, almost like creating these worlds in a cinematic way that will eventually be, you'll become filmmakers, but at the time you start making these little worlds in which the sets in which the images are taking place, in which the stories are being told. Tell us a little bit about that, the technical dimension of what comes next for you guys.
I think, what was the first image we did in studio? Overflowing sink, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we just kind of, went and we had an idea of a sink that is overflowing in the kitchen. And, and, obviously nobody would want us to do that in their kitchen. So out of necessity, we decided to build it. We had just received a grant, our first grant, from a tobacco company. God bless them.
So it's put to good use.
Yeah, which kind of gave us the means to explore more and to try and really create it. And our uncle was kind enough to lend us a room in the back of his warehouse, and so we just figured, let's try and figure out how to do this. And it's pretty complex. So luckily we had met this commercial photographer who was on the jury of that granting body, and we became friends with him, and he sort of started to mentor us for a few years and really show us what needs to be done, what needs to be thought of, because the work we do, especially if we're in studio, is pretty technical. And at art school you don't learn any of that. So yeah, where am I going with this?
Oh, just that this is, I think,
Going in
part of,
circles.
no, this is part of the technical dimension. I mean, if making a film is a very technical thing, and there's no,
Yeah.
a film is obviously a project that involves a lot of different people and experts in whether it's lighting or rigging or sound or whatever it may be. There's like a huge crew, but already then you start working with people who are experts in their field, whether it's lighting or the type of camera or the type of whatever it may be that you're going to need. And but the technical aspect has this thing that relates to film almost, it seems.
Yeah, because we started to, we needed very specific sets. We needed very specific like rooms, or we have
Yeah.
one. We have
Basically
one.
why you'll work in studio.
Yeah,
is
we
'cause
want,
you need,
we needed to
you need
control
space.
everything.
but
We had like we had an image of it's called Rescue Effort, and it's an image of a mudslide, and people are pulling this person out of a mudslide, or we did this in studio also. So we always have we really find studio to be the ideal place when we need a very specific thing. But I think in the past 10 years, I think we've kind of went away from shooting everything in studio and have started to, expand outside, expand on location a little more, because studio sets are really time consuming because you're building it from the ground up.
it's hard to beat a well lived in location. There's just certain things about a location that's hard to beat, and I think we found that out by having worked in studio for so long, where you're responsible for every little item that's in the scene. You're responsible for all the props and whatever's behind the windows and whatever, all those elements. Every mark on the wall, you have to put it there if you want it. If you need to get a scenic painter to come in and age the walls, if you want it to feel like it hasn't been painted in 5-10 years. So there's a lot more energy expenditure working in studio. If you have to, then you have to do it, because you can't find a certain location or whatever. But we have come to see there's also a beauty in finding that perfect location, because it has a life in it that would be very hard to recreate.
But I think also our ideas have changed.
Yeah.
So we're not always, our initial idea doesn't start in studio,
In a
which
room.
it did for so many years.
Did a lot of rooms.
Did a lot of rooms. Well, yeah, did rooms, did outdoor stuff in studio as well.
Yeah. I just don't physically have the capacity anymore to wheelbarrow in like 1,000 wheelbarrows full of sand to do another image in studio and then think about getting it out of there.
1,000 wheelbarrows of sand. Wow.
Yeah.
We're it's nearly 1:30 over here in Montreal, and so we in about 15 minutes we're going to take some questions, and so there can be a Q&A. But I think it might be a good idea to show some of your recent work in a little bit. But maybe before we get there, let's talk about, when did the idea for writing a screenplay start to enter your life, and becoming directors? How does that begin, and what is that process of going from photographers to screenwriters? How did that happen?
I felt I knew we always wanted to do film. I think it was something that was always an interest and always there. At a certain point, I felt my ideas maybe were becoming a little redundant in photography. Like I was struggling to be excited with whatever ideas were coming up for me. And we had been doing it at that point for 15 years? Photography, pretty
10-ish.
10-ish, 10, 12-ish. And probably around that same time we started seeing ideas for, or like seeing news stories about people who had been imprisoned for long-term imprisonments, and captivate people who are captive, and the abductors and all these things. There was like a string of events that happened at a certain point, and the stories kind of stuck to us. Like, they could have very easily have been a photo or something, but we were kind of, I felt, or kind of moving away a bit from the still world. And I think we wanted to open up. I think we wanted to, know enough with the mysteries in one frame. We wanted to be able to talk and tell you and show you and get deeper inside an idea, really take the viewers within a world, within a story. I think we just needed to open up the way in which we were telling stories. I think we needed to really move past the static image and access a story in a way that we could, really create something all encompassing, and film is the perfect medium, so we bought a book on how to write a screenplay, and we went away for a month or two and wrote something, and that was pretty much the beginning of that very long journey. But I think it was born from just wanting to expand upon what we had already been doing. It was a need we needed to follow.
I mean, I think, the images we make have always been comparative film. So it was kind of like the natural evolution in our career to go that step further and put our images in motion.
Yeah.
So then you have this opportunity to explore a feature-length story, and you do it, you make it. The film was initially titled A Worthy Companion. Now it's known in certain territories as Allure, or is it known as Allure in all territories? Allure. And now you're kind of, after doing that, you find yourselves today working on more screenplays, on further follow-ups, but also doing photography. How do you see both the strengths and the limitations of both today?
Well, film takes so long to make, and there's so many people involved. I think in order to stay sane, and to actually be able to create something when you want, that's kind of when we go back to photography. And also, I think the way our ideas come, they're sort of cyclical as well. If we can have a lot of ideas that will be good for a film we're working on, and then for some reason ideas start coming to us about photos. It's hard to explain.
I think it's a mindset. I think we go into a certain mindset that opens the pathways for being receptive to images and ideas that will work in photography. I think there's a in film, you have to be very mindful of composition and lighting and all these things, but there's so many other pieces that need to fall into place in film. So you're not always working that one tool. But when we feel the need to regain control over creativity and to be productive, I think there's a certain mindset we slip into that changes the way we perceive the things that are grabbing our interest. I think the radars are always up. When we're working on film, the radars are up and they're grabbing things that are good for the film. And I think when the photo radar's up, it's grabbing things that would work well as a still image. That's how I can understand it now that we've been through that cycle a few times.
Personally, when I saw Allure the first time, I noticed that there were certain moments in the film that reminded me of some of your earlier still images. Is that, am I the only one who's noticed that, or is that are the facts?
No, there's like a dream sequence thing that happened throughout the film that was a ripoff of one of our images.
It was the underwater sequence, right?
Is it a rip-off though, if it's ours?
A reappropriation, maybe.
Self-plagiarism.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring Jay to court for doing that.
I'll bring myself to court.
It was different enough, but certainly there was an echo of it, and in a way, it's an interesting continuity between the photography and the filmmaking.
Yeah.
There's this one here.
Yeah, so that it's hard to tell, but that's like a woman sinking in a big open expanse of dark water, and it's called Descent. And in our film, there's certain moments where an actress, one of the characters, is going through significant and momentous change, and that kind of falling down into blackness was used by us in the film to kind of signal that kind of subconscious that emotion, that subconscious feeling that was happening within the character. It gave an essence to the story in certain moments.
Well,
I guess we just couldn't think of a better idea. It was just that worked in photos, so let's just use it. Let's just put it in there.
I think it's interesting because I think there's also in some of we're going to see some of your recent work now, and there's at least one of them that, having looked at an early draft of your new screenplay, there's at least one of these images that kind of reminds me a little bit of the screenplay. So that's also kind of interesting. The way that you workshop some of the screenplay in a way through some of these images. Is that fair?
Well, we kind of had a scene in our new from the screenplay we're working on now, which we've made into a image, Charlotte's Hallucination. We'll see a little bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of fun also when images and motion can work together, and it lets us explore that idea in different ways.
So what is it that we're seeing here on the screen?
Well, we're going to see the five new images, or five new images that we will be showing in London. I think we went into this new body of work really trying to get away from people, I think, and get away from having people at the forefront of our images. Our previous work had been very emotionally heavy, psychologically charged thematics about what people were going through, and it was very focused on people and tight on what they were doing. And I think we kind of just wanted to open it up a little bit. This one is called At a Moment's Notice, and we had the idea that we wanted to create a kind of event that happened and everyone had to immediately leave, and it's been shown a few times, and it's always interesting to think what people think about this image too.
Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with how he laid that out. I was just wondering, because we did shoot this, in COVID, and there's another COVID one in there too. I wonder if that had any effect on it, just stepping back physically from people, something we had to do. Did that help or inform anyway that we weren't working with people so much? I don't know. Yeah. And I think we just felt like, there's some location shots too that we just felt we wanted to change our own landscapes that we thought about and things like that, and just see things newly for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it also makes sense that during COVID, you had access to these spaces that that had been abandoned, or where there was nobody was there, right? This shot in the one of the hotel, I think both of these, no need to build a regal ballroom when you can just use the ballroom, right? Nobody was in the ballroom at that time.
No, we could never afford something like this to shoot in unless it wasn't being used. So we were able to get this location for several days for a great price, with all the stuff we needed in the hotel to throw into it. So from a production standpoint, this one was a winner for us. I don't think we would have been able to ever afford doing something on this scale during normal times, but we had this thought of this type of scene where we don't know what happened, but something happened where people had to flee, and it just so happened that, because of the state of the world, we were able to capitalize on that and really use this location as we needed to for several days, and nobody hassled us about it so much. So it worked out really well.
Amazing. And I really do see that continuity from the early work, whether it's the overflowing sink or even the red dress to this, that there's something very mysterious about it. There's no way around it. We want to know what happened, and that's part of why we love these images.
Yeah.
Shall we move to the next image?
Yeah.
What is the next one? Do you guys know? Yes, Nightscape. So this is also an image that was done during COVID. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the hotel that's on the left side of the image is the same hotel that we shot the previous image. So the hotel was the full hotel was empty. So this shot is taken from a hotel that's on the other side of the street facing this. And yeah, it was just, we wanted to really step back. It's very hard to see. You're gonna have to come to London to see it blown up in its proper
Book your
size.
tickets.
But or buy the image.
It's not in the book, is it?
It is in the book.
Oh, it is in the book?
Yeah.
Buy the book.
But there are two. You see it on the left side. There's two hotel rooms that are kind of lit up, and we staged thing going on in there, and we really like to juxtapose this woman living through something with the vastness of the background. And
Yeah, it's also the COVID isolation, the COVID loneliness, the COVID everything at that time, I think, was kind of omnipresent in this for sure. I think it helped inform or bring it to life to a certain degree. There's a Edward Hopper inspiration, I think, for sure, for looking through the window at this woman in her private moment.
Next one.
Wait, let's hold on for a moment. I also think that there's something, you mentioned earlier about the way your storytelling has become more subtle, and that the mystery element is you've honed this ability to tell these stories in images in a way where nuance has become more of an important thing. And I think this is one of those examples. Like, I don't think this one, takes a briefcase and hits you over the head with it and says, like, look at something very dramatic is going on here. It says something is going on here, but in a subtle way. Because when I look at the image, I do see there's that woman in that room.
Yeah.
But she's not in some state of we don't know what state she's
Yes.
in. Oh,
Mhm.
right. And then there's a suitcase on the other bed. Is that what we see in the other room?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, there's it's a nondescript impersonal space with a few personal items in it. I think we're reaching for a feeling also. I think it also comes down to, like, when you're being more nuanced, I think you're kind of reaching for a feeling. What does this evoke in you, you know? And I think by virtue of being more subtle, I think it also requires a bit more of an engagement with the viewer. When something's very flashy and in your face and bold, you register most of it. You register the all the clues and things quite quickly, and you kind of, it's a quicker process, I'd say. I think when things are more nuanced, it's a different experience.
Mhm.
And maybe that's how we've changed in a way. It's we're more interested in a bit of a lengthier relationship with the piece, where it can reveal itself a little slower.
Very interesting. Also, the Edward Hopper, when you see some of his paintings, you see the process that he went through. He also was, as he was getting older as an artist, trying to find ways to make the mystery less obvious. You know, like at a certain point, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to have a character in this window, and that character is going to be, let's say, in distress or something." And so an early draft of the painting has that, but then he realizes, wait, what if that character just isn't there? Maybe it's even stronger and even more subtle. Through the subtlety, there is a greater strength in the image.
Mhm.
And I think that's interesting to see that in your own evolution here.
Yeah, you change. I mean, without a doubt, the way in which you think of your work changes as, you know, the longer you do it. It has to somehow evolve, hopefully, you know. And I find it more challenging to be subtle. To be honest, it's for an image to work on its own without any other factors there to support it. I find it's a bit more difficult to conceptualize of an image that still speaks loudly but is more subtle in its presentation.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's where hopefully experience comes into play, where you can, you know, get past the initial impulse to make things loud and clear, and just dig a little deeper and get to the essence of it.
Yeah. So we have about 10 minutes left. Should
I think let's go to the next image and we'll see if there's any. You want to go on to that?
do people, if people have questions, they can pop it in the Q&A thing, and we can, you know, kind of do, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay,
This is
we'll
this is an
monitor that.
example of an image that necessitated being shot in studio. You know, we were very so this is Charlotte's Hallucination, is based on this other thing we were working on about a woman who has a certain neurological disease in which she hallucinates things. And we had a very specific set in mind where, like, the whole back wall would be mirrored, and we would have this woman interacting with a hallucination of hers. But we wanted to, you know, make sure within the same image we could also show you that it was something that was strictly of her own mind. So this was a very lengthy studio process, but part of I think us trying to change our ideas or evolve out of norms that we had been used to was what we saw outside, what we see outside the window. We're used to seeing, I don't know, pine trees and cedar hedges or whatever it is we're used to seeing outside of windows. We were compelled to try and see something different for this. We wanted to take it elsewhere. We wanted to give it a bit of a more exotic feel for us, at the very least. Maybe outside that window is very familiar to somebody, but for us, part of the thinking of the work was how do we just keep it interesting for us as well? You know, yes, it's a studio shot and all this stuff, but where we set it, let's make it somewhere new to us, you know. So that got us to travel to shoot the exteriors, which allowed us to shoot some other images on location that we wouldn't have been able to shoot here. So I think that's also part of how our process changed. It's also thinking about, okay, what's outside the window? Where do we want this to be set globally? Where would it make more sense? Where would this story take on a different color or tone, you know, with what's going on behind the window, which is something that maybe you don't even register when you look at it necessarily, but to us it was an important piece of it.
Where are we?
We're outside the window.
Yeah.
It's in California. So we went to California and we shot a couple images. We shot the exteriors for this one, and then popped them in.
We go to the next image.
So there was one question that was asking what the name of the Edward Hopper inspired piece was, which was Nightscape, for those who didn't catch it, and that will be on display at Photo London this month, as will all of these images we're looking at right here, including Broken Heart.
Yeah, this was just the location that Jay had driven by on his way somewhere, and he stopped to take a shot of it, and I don't know, there's something about it that really attracted us to the image. It's, I guess there was a mystery there that brought us into it,
Of
So
course,
this
we live in a French,
sorry, go ahead, Jason.
we live in a French Canadian province, so just the fact of seeing an English word written big and bold on a house in that area was odd in itself, but that might have initially got my attention, but the word broken heart on that kind of derelict building. Yeah, what were you gonna say, Adam?
Oh, well, first off, that I love this image, I was going to say, but also I was going to say this one was not this is a real example of not a studio piece. This is a found piece.
Yeah. Unaltered. I mean, we didn't change anything. It's just as is.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about it. I mean, God, what a powerful image. Broken
I think
heart.
there's just a lot of familiarity in it. I think it's easy to step into this one. I mean, we showed it in Miami, and people were wondering if it was like in their hometown of wherever they were from. Like I know this place. Is this here? Is this here? Like 5 or 6 people thought they knew exactly where that place was.
Wow, in snowy Florida, huh?
Yeah, it was at an art fair, so there's people from everywhere, but
I see. They thought it was from the north.
yeah, like is this like suburbs of Chicago or something, or wherever. I just think there's a certain familiarity of it, and the word broken heart is something we can all relate to in some way. I'm not saying we're all broken hearted, but the idea of broken heart can take us in, and the familiarity of that type of location and that type of year and that type of vibe, I think has some type of connection to people. It speaks to us in our own very unique ways, but it does speak to us. I feel it speaks to me, at least.
Yeah, speaks to me too. And speaking about speaking to us, we have a question here from one of our participants who would like to know what you shoot with in terms of camera and film.
Well, we still shoot film. We always have. This particular one was shot on 4x5 inch film. We also still shoot sometimes on 8x10 when the time is right.
We have
But
enough light.
mostly this last body work was all shot on 4x5 film. And if we
Yeah,
go
beat
to,
it.
yeah, if we go to the last of the images that'll be shown in London. Next image.
What about this one? Was this also 4x5?
Yeah, so this is called Border Crossing. Yeah, another image we shot in California. Yeah, this is, you know, just the way our mind worked when we were producing this body of work. I know we had read an article of migrants coming, I guess, this way or somewhere. Anyways, there was someone had found a wedding ring in a bag that was floating in the ocean and somehow got it back to the person's wife or something, or the husband. Or anyways, we really like, we kind of, you know, that visual was very intriguing to us, of this, you know, like just having a suitcase floating in the ocean really, I mean, at least for ourselves, really tells a hell of a story. You know, there's so many possibilities here, and I think that's what attracted us to that specific idea. That's what attracts us to many specific ideas, is how, you know, how many stories can an image tell? I think that's maybe what we've been trying to do over the past 20 some odd years that we've been working together.
Jason, does that resonate?
Sorry, I wasn't listening. What do you say?
He was saying, what is the
Yeah.
importance of humor in your work?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
so
gotta keep it light.
I mean, I think it is one of the interesting things in your, like, knowing you as a friend, that you guys are very funny people, but I do think that your work is a little bit more serious and dark. And I wonder if going forward, we might see a little bit of this patented Sanchez humor creeping into some of your work. How does
Maybe
that?
a dark comedy film. I'd be interested in a dark comedy film.
A horror comedy, maybe.
Yeah, a rom-com.
Like a Hallmark Christmas film. That'll be a nice one.
Yeah.
Well,
For
I
sure.
think that it is interesting that it is one of your real strengths as people, is how funny you guys both are. And I would like to see that creep into your, personally, I'd like to see it creep into your storytelling.
I would
Me too.
really like it too.
Me
For
too.
some reason, we've always had trouble writing. I mean, we're thinking of images that are more on the light side of things. I don't know, maybe we got to go to like clown school or something.
Clowns are dark. Not a good
Yeah,
place
there
to
you
start.
go. There you go.
It's not
There you
gonna
go.
help.
We gotta go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Well, wherever you go, it will be exciting to follow, and it will be exciting to see where your craft takes you and takes us, and where these images will take us. Because it's, as Jason said at the very beginning, these images bring us in. They bring us into these stories, and they bring us into these worlds. And it's a real pleasure to enter into them, and it's a real pleasure to be your friend.
Likewise.
Likewise.
It's been a pleasure to be here as well. And I think that we're in the final moment. Thank you to everybody who joined us. And thank you for your questions.
Yeah.
And are there any closing thoughts you'd like to leave us with? Bros.
Come to London.
I'll buy you a drink.
All right, we'll see you there at Photo London. And thank you to everybody at Photo London for
Thank you, Photo London,
for making this possible. And we have one last quick question sneaking in before the wire, which is, are you guys gonna have a show in Montreal or what?
Nothing planned.
Try and get us a show in Montreal.
There was a show when the book came out at Antiism. It was not. You didn't even show anything there though.
No, I didn't.
No, we just had a book launch with paintings by our friend Beaver. But I think that, yeah, you guys, I think that's a very good question. You guys should have a show soon in Montreal.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Would like to.
Museum curators.
Museum
We
curator.
we don't have a gallery in Montreal, so it's a bit hard.
Yeah. There you have it.
Hard.
Budding gallerists in Montreal, there is a gaping opportunity to sign these two up. All right. Well, everybody, thank you again, and hope to see you in London, and wishing you all a magnificent photo London.
Apparently
Yeah.
drinks on Jay. Hope he's buying me one.
Offer expires in 25 minutes.
Bye,
Bye, all.
thank you.
Thank you.